Spins. Hey, here we are. Welcome,
Hey.
everyone. Yeah. So I'm Lauren Abrams, and I'm so psyched that Trevor's here again. He's on episode 175, and it may be one of my all time favorite episodes. A
Mm.
good, raw conversation. Yeah. And he's wearing an extremely conscious t shirt, and we just had a great conversation about the comments that he gets wearing it in grocery stores and everything else.
Oh
So
man,
yeah,
that's
so
something
Trevor,
else.
and if you're watching the replay, welcome. We're so glad that you're listening. Trevor, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, it's great to connect again. Obviously, we've
Yeah.
chatted on a few Zoom calls, but that interview that we did, I mentioned it to you, and I was not blowing smoke or anything. I was like, you got me to talk about some things that I've never really talked about before, and they were very fresh and new experiences of dreams that I had had and things that I had seen coming to me in these, intuitive moments where I'm actually moving in that direction. And let me just say, it's like uncomfortable as hell to not only feel
Yeah.
those things, but then to talk about them out loud, knowing that, hey, there's no turning back now. I get to move in that direction. So thank you for interviewing me. And yeah, I'm always excited to talk to you. So who am I? Trevor Turnbull. I am a father of two boys, Logan and Bodhi. They're 5 and 6 years old. I'm husband to Sharmila. I do a lot of internet stuff. I have for like 20 years. I'm the co-creator of this space I call the Extremely Conscious Man Movement, where myself and Mike Prince have created communities to encourage conversation, connection, and just adventure in life so that we can truly focus on living as opposed to just existing. So that's kind of the summary of me in 30 seconds or less.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of creators that are just burnt out. It's not just moms who are burnt out, and we talked a lot about the going, and being able to just take a breath and pause, and you don't even know that that's what you need. And it's I always say answers emerge in that pause. And
Yeah.
when you take that pause, and maybe you need to do a pivot, and you certainly have. It's not like I mean, you've everyone's your world has come crashing down before, and everyone goes through it. Like there's no escaping going through it in life, and the only way through is through. And once you look in hindsight, and you have to be sometimes quite a way through to go back and go, wow, there were so many lessons learned. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, go ahead.
Well, and yeah, I'll speak to that. Like obviously in the episode that we did together, we talked about burnout and we talked about those moments in time that I could reflect on where I could distinctly remember just hitting a wall and thinking, I can't do this anymore. And then having to bravely leap into the unknown to say, okay, well, then what else am I going to do? Who else am I going to become in order to create this new reality? And since the interview that we did, I actually reflected on this a lot. I journaled about it too. This is another aspect of the slowing down. An old version of me wouldn't do that. I'd just keep powering through and go, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, that was a good conversation. What's next? What's next? But I actually started to reflect on the fact that I've chosen to pivot many, many times in my life. And when you're a quote unquote high achiever, fast mover, I go make shit happen, you sometimes don't even slow down enough to recognize it that, oh, there was a moment in time where I had a choice to either stay the path, and it wasn't a bad choice to go down that path, or say, nope, doesn't feel aligned and go this direction. And just feel all the uncomfortableness of like, I don't even know where I'm going. It's dark over there. It seems like there's 7 trails and I don't know which one to take, but I'm just going to keep moving. And it got me to realize that it's actually a bit of a superpower. It's like I love leaning into the uncomfortable. And I think there's a fine line there though too, right? It's like constantly wanting to shift and morph into different versions of ourselves as opposed to staying the course on something, whether it be parenting or your business or whatever. It can be a slippery slope, but talking through it helps. Hence why your
Oh yeah.
podcast is so impactful.
You know what? Talking through is huge. And we talked about having accountability partners or somebody else to just like work it through with, like, this is what I'm thinking and I'm not sure. And just, but movement. Movement's important. If you've got
Mm,
some dream or something, taking any kind of movement creates energy. So it just does. And
absolutely.
yeah.
And
So
it's
it's
kind
it.
of,
Go.
I was just going to say, it's kind of the opposite of what we were just saying about the slowdown, too. Hence the kind of right shoulder, left shoulder, devil angel talking
Yeah,
to us.
yeah.
It's like, you need to slow down. It's like, no, you need to keep moving. Which one is it? And I think it's a little bit of both. It can never just be one or the other. And again, though, surrounding yourself with the right people, this is one of the unlocks that I found in this entire journey myself. And part of the big reason why I co-created the space that I have and the programs and stuff that we have is that if you try and navigate all of this stuff and answer those questions of like, is this a slowdown time? Am I supposed to just sit with this right now? Or am I supposed to push through it? You need other people around you to be able to go, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. I went through that 2 years ago. This is what I did. I'm not telling you what to do, but here was my experience. Now you go have your experience. It normalizes it. It makes you feel like you're not alone. And while it sounds simple, most people just kind of stay up here, right? As opposed to in here. And
you talked about this so well on the episode. You're like, before, if somebody had told you to go within, you would have been like, what? No, I need to keep working.
What are you talking about? Yeah. That's not how I do things.
Yeah.
I'm not wired like that. Like old story.
Yeah. I thought that was so good. Because the answers are within. You don't need to ask people. I mean, it's good to talk it through and talk it out and journal and do all of that. But at the end of the day, like you do, but you have to get quiet for the answers to emerge.
Yeah. Well, and Lauren, we so one of the things that we do inside the groups that we have, both the inner circle that I actively participate in, not just leading in, we do these prompts, these daily prompts. And the one that we did yesterday was asking everybody, how are you doing? So it was a very general question, just like, just speak the truth out loud. Tell us what's alive and real for you. And then it had a reminder. It said, the breakdown that you're avoiding is what's stopping you from having the breakthrough that you desire.
Yeah.
And I remembered reading that. In fact, it was Danielle that wrote that, who I've connected you to. Hopefully you guys can connect and get her on your show too.
Yeah.
But she wrote that, and I remembered reading it and thinking, well, I'm not really avoiding any breakdowns. And then I thought, why don't I go a little deeper and think about this? And then it's always there. It's just, you're avoiding it. You're avoiding even thinking about it. So when a person actually does sit back and go, what is that conversation I'm avoiding? What is that workout that I'm avoiding? What is that intention that I have to become a healthier version of myself and eat better food, but I still like cookies? What am I avoiding? Like, where am I not actually being truthfully honest about where my actions align with my intentions and my commitments? And it's a very, kind of confronting question to ask, which is why it's not easy for people to go there. But when you do, and you actually say the truth out loud, man, oh man, it just unlocks everything for you. And it's super uncomfortable because it's supposed to be.
Yeah, you're out of denial. You're admitting it. So it's like, okay, like maybe you're not dating because you're afraid and it's comfortable where you're at. Or, I mean, as soon as you like take a look, it's what's going on. Or, okay, it all looks good, but I'm lonely and I'm not happy at this great job that I'm doing, even though I'm making money and everything looks good on the outside, because I don't have time to get on the floor and play with my kids or to laugh with my friends or just to take a breath.
Yeah. And I know, I can't remember if we talked about this, but I know like Dr. Joe Dispenza famously talks about this all the time too, right? We can create change in a state of disease and pain and suffering, or we can do it in a state of clarity and bliss and happiness and momentum and power, right?
Yeah.
And that just speaks to the fact that in order to create change where it's not because you got a disease or because you had a major breakup or a divorce or you got fired from your job, you have to bravely step into the unknown. Because what you have on the surface level, especially from other people's perspective, might seem amazing. You got the job, you got the family, you got the house, you got the vacations, you got all the things. But if something inside is saying, this doesn't feel like it's it, this is not enough. And even if it is ego driven, like I don't have enough, stepping into that unknown, that's where all the magic is. And
yeah, definitely. Yeah, something's off. When something's off. I just heard something so good. I was listening to just this morning, like, you're never going to get it perfect. you never, but I'm gonna butcher it. I should have written it down. Like, forget it. Like, but nothing's gonna be perfect. Like, you just keep working towards what it is, and
But Lauren, that's a perfect example what you just did there
yeah,
too, right? Like, how many people would love to have their own podcast or be able to at least just say what they have on their mind in their small group of friends, but they hesitate to because they're worried about saying the wrong thing or forgetting the line or whatever it might be. That's the unlock, is that when you get to the place where you're willing to just free flow, like this is a free flow
yeah,
conversation.
right, of course. But nobody cares, and nobody's gonna remember I did that unless we keep pointing it out, or but whatever. They're still not gonna think about it. Nobody cares. Nobody is paying attention. And I
Yeah,
talked about a couple weeks ago or whenever it was, even last week, whatever you cringe about the most in your life that I don't want anyone to know. I just don't want anyone to know this about me. No one cares. No one's
nobody
paying that
cares.
much attention.
Yeah,
Like,
nobody is.
whatever what you talked about, because I was thinking of all these different things it could have been. You're like, I never shared this before on a podcast. I was thinking of all these different things it could have been. Now I know what it is because you said I've never talked about this before. But and I'm like, I was thinking of all these different things. I don't care. I don't think any differently about you by anything. It was just this
Hmm.
great conversation we had, which every episode 175, it just came out. And go listen. It's just so good and
I'll be
uplifting and
sharing it.
everything. Yeah. And anyway, like nobody is going to blink or think, like, because everyone's thinking about themselves anyway. So, like,
Yeah.
release that burden of whatever it is you don't want to talk about.
Well, and there's also an aspect too. I know a lot of times, for me, from my own experience, when I hit that point where I hit burnout, because I know we talked a lot about that too. The biggest question that I had at the time was, there's got to be more. Isn't there more to this? Like, I feel like, is this it? There's
Yeah.
got to be more than this. And I actually learned this a long time ago, but I keep getting reminded of it, that the mess that is my life, all of these things that don't go as planned, or the things that do and that I don't acknowledge or celebrate because I'm like, wow, yeah, no worries. Of course that happened, right? So just not feeling and experiencing all the highs and lows. Those are the things that are the magical parts that allow us to actually grow. And when you can take that mess and turn it into your message, now you can actually create impact and influence, because you give permission to others to witness you in all of your highs and your lows, transparently saying, this is my journey. And I don't expect it to be any different going forward either. I got a plan, so I'm going to like intentionally move in this direction, and this is where I'm going. But I know it's going to zigzag all over the place.
Yeah.
And it just opens up for other people to go, huh, maybe I can do that too. We see it every single day in this program that we have. I know we talked about it. I
Yeah.
think when we chatted, we hadn't even launched yet. We call it the Evolving Man Accelerator. And the guys are starting to have conversations that are just unlocking another level of vulnerability and authenticity, that light bulbs are going off. They're starting to recognize things that were completely obvious in front of them previously, but they had the blinders on. They
Can you
just
give
couldn't.
some examples? Because I think people relate through stories. You don't. I mean, I'm not saying with names or anything, but just like
Yeah,
examples.
sure. So, one of the guys that we have, he joined this program not because his life was falling down all around him, but rather it was quite the opposite. Like, his life is good. His wife's got a great job. He's got two amazing teenage kids. Very few challenges with those kids, knowing, kids in today's age, it can be very
Yeah.
challenging with social media and just school life and social life and everything else. But he came in with this idea that he's at this stage in his life, in his 40s, where he wants to step into another level. He wants to be able to become a coach. He wants to support other people that maybe look like him, but 20 years earlier. So, sharing the gifts of what he's learned
Yeah.
along the way. And, through the communications and the conversations and the prompts that we've given him, he's recognized that he is already an expert at this. He doesn't need all the trainings or the certifications or anything like that. And that's not to say that those are bad,
Right.
but it's just, we forget that life is actually training us to be able to be of service to other people. It's just a matter of remembering. So it's not even about learning, it's about remembering what has brought you to this place. What are the lessons that you've learned? how can you wrap a story around it that lets it land for somebody to say, huh, I never thought about it that way. So that's one example. Another one is just, all of these guys have big, crazy dreams. It's part of the reason why they're in the space too. And they're not just financial, it's about impact and legacy and everything else. And I think one of the big unlocks that's happened for one of our guys is the quote, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So even though there's certain areas in his life, he's crushing it, he's really leaned in and he's like totally focused. He's a very attentive and present father. Him and his wife are very spiritually growing and elevating constantly. On the financial side, on the business side, he's had some troubles over the years. A lot of stories there from years and years ago. But he's recognizing that how he treats himself, how he talks to himself, the rest that he gets, the water he consumes, the food he eats, the way he moves his body will actually help him become more abundant financially, because all of these pieces are connected. So that's just a couple of examples.
No, those are good, because you talk about the different, how that all applies on the episode, the water, the health, he went through the different elements.
Yeah. So. And it's all so simple, right? Like we've created a guide called The Simple Guide to Extreme Change. And I say it right in the guide too, in the first couple of paragraphs. What you're going to read on here is very simple. And even though it's 59 pages, because there's a lot of information in there, it is simple, but it's not easy, because it requires consistency. It requires you to lean into uncomfortable things, situations, conversations, physical activity. But everything you want is on the other side. People make things way more complicated than they have to be in this world.
It's so true. But the things that make us feel the best, I always say, I wish I did them as much as I could eat. I'll use the cookies as an example. I could eat cookies all day.
Right.
I wish I could journal all the time and meditate. Well, I mean, I do, but that's because I have to for my course, for my teacher training course. So, I mean, anyway, so.
But it is like anything, right? You do it consistently enough and you actually start to crave it after a while.
Oh, absolutely. I have to. It's my air. Yes, absolutely. I can tell when I haven't, and it's, once you start doing it, they say it's 21 days to create a new habit. And I believe that. So.
Yeah. And I think we need as humans, as us flawed 3D humans, we need these affirmations or these highs, these dopamine rush of like, is this working? I don't think this is working.
Yeah,
but you can get that by actually just slowing down and being aware of the fact that I feel off right now. I've stopped journaling. Maybe I should go do that. And then doing it and recognizing that like, oh, it's actually that simple. Something as simple as morning pages, where you just sit down and let your pen continue to write. I don't even know what to write, but that's what I'm going to write. I don't know what to write right now. Wow, that light is really bright. Geez, this coffee sure tastes good. Like, it sounds crazy, but it's actually an unlock to allow you to slow down enough to become present and okay with where you are. And
I love the way you talked about the brain dump when we were on the episode. So this is so great. When there's links in the episode to all of Trevor's programs and how to get in touch with them and everything else. But really, episode 175, how to reinvent yourself. And it's just so much more than that. There's all these tools and tricks, and just, it's fun to listen to. I listened to it again, even though I had listened to it again. So I think I've listened to it a number of times now. So thank you so much. This was so great going live, and I can't wait to chat again.
Thank you so much, Lauren. I'm looking forward to listening to it again as well.
Yeah.